Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video on the topic of a special case in the missing 411 phenomena. And why this is special is because if you don't know anything about any of the cases, if you familiarize yourself with this one, this particular one, you'll understand why there's something here. Why this is not just a random missing person situation and occurrence. Okay, you'll see why that is. Okay, so I'm talking about the case of Bart Schleyer, who was missing, still missing, from the Reed Lakes area in the Yukon Territory in Canada, in northwestern Canada. Okay, so in order to understand this case, you have to understand what kind of person Bart Schleyer was. He was the kind of person that excelled in his field as a student in the field of biology. He graduated with honors. He did a master's program, and he was basically someone that had a passion for biology, animals, especially big mammals. So naturally, he started to get involved in work that involved tagging and tracking bears, and getting more acquainted with bear activity and their behavior. He was literally one of the best in the world at doing this. He was so good that after doing a bunch of great work in Alaska and the United States and Canada, he was then requested to go to the USSR, or at the time, but now it's Russia, obviously, because of how acclaimed he was in the community. He was just that good at what he did. Apart from that, he was also a very physically imposing person. He was over 6 foot tall. He was in great shape. People that worked with him, I remember days when he would track bears for 12 hours on a day, and then get to a cabin in the woods and still have the presence of mind to do pull-up, push-up routines, and with logs, and just using his body weight, just because of how important staying fit was for him. And it was that important when you're in the wild, and a lot of the time you don't get the comforts that we take for granted. Then yes, you better be in the best possible shape in case things go wrong, or if you get caught in some kind of storm, whatever, right? So he was definitely ready for all of that. Not only that, but he was at age 50, roughly, that's when he disappeared. He was very, very comfortable with being in the woods on his own. And I know that this is one of the no-nos that David outlines. If you're gonna go hiking or camping or hunting, you really should do it with at least one buddy, one person that knows you very well, and you guys work well together, because it dramatically increases your chances of not getting lost or getting eaten, whatever, getting into trouble. Nevertheless, in the September of 2006, Bart Schleyer rented a float plane and paid a pilot to drop him off, and told him to pick him up roughly 2 weeks later. And no problem, no one saw any problem with that. Everyone knew he would do great. He was a phenomenal woodsman and bear tracker, and just knew what he was doing. On this particular trip, he wanted to go to this area. It wasn't the most spectacular area. That's the one thing that is weird about this case. He was going to hunt moose, and people that know the area somewhat well, or at least are from the area, all claim that this is not the best spot to go in the Yukon. There's far better spots that you could go, and you could have a much better chance of encountering moose. But that was his choice. He just wanted, maybe he's never visited that area, and that's probably why he was so keen on going there. Anyway, so as the story unfolds, he gets dropped off, and everything's fine. He has all his equipment. He had his bow and arrows. This was going to be a bow hunting trip, not a firearms hunting trip. And the pilot left him, and he knew when to get back, and there was nothing unusual. when the pilot got back to the area to pick him up 2 weeks later, he immediately noticed something weird. He got a very eerie and kind of weird feeling about it, because when he landed on the lake and looked around, he saw Bart's camp, and he saw evidence that he was hunting and he was doing his thing. However, there were some very unusual things that he noticed right away. There was his tent had collapsed, as if someone sat on it, some giant thing sat on it, or something fell on it, right? That was the first thing that was unnerving. And then the pilot realized that there was something wrong, because Bart was not around. He was not responding to his calls, yet the camp seemed undisturbed. So it looked like as maybe Bart went for a hike or something, or far away from his camp. But the reason why that was so weird is because there was a lot of his stuff that was still at the camp. So even if he were to do that, it was unusual to think that it wouldn't be normal to think that he would just go off for such a long distance where the pilot wouldn't hear him, and not take a lot of the stuff with him that was left at the camp. And also, it was the due date when he was going to be picked up, and so it felt unusual that Bart wouldn't be ready to go. He was always a very organized person, very responsible person, so this was very unusual. So feeling creeped out, knowing something's up, the pilot just packed up and left. And the moment he got back, I believe to Whitehorse, he reported that there's something wrong, and there's got to be, he needs someone to come with him to search for Bart, because Bart is nowhere to be found. So the RCMP's response was very weak. They acknowledged that there might be something wrong, but all they did is they did a flyover of the area, and they didn't really do much investigative work as you would for a normal missing person in this case. But when the family and friends found out about what's happening, they definitely initiated a search, and a search was conducted. What was found was very strange. On the opposite side of the lake, Bart's bow and arrow were found, and his bag with gear was found with almost like his butt groove on it, looking like he was sitting on it and calling in a moose. That's what the theory was. That's what how he got accosted or something by something. There were wolf and bear tracks in the area, and there was some bear scat that was analyzed, but there was absolutely no evidence of any clothing found in Bart's clothing found in the scat, which is very unusual. If a bear happens to eat you, which is rare by the way, but it does happen, especially there. In all of the bear attacks in Yukon's history, none of them involved the bear consuming the person. Anyway, if the bear happens to eat you, like me right now, there will be pieces of this scarf or what I'm wearing or my undershirt in the scat, because the bear doesn't discriminate. If it's hungry, it's gonna eat you with what you have on. It's not gonna take clothes off you first and then neatly eat you. That's not how it works. Okay. The other thing that was weird was Bart's hunting mask was found not far from his bow and arrows, and there was a small amount of blood on the inside of it, and it was Bart's blood because they did test it. So now here's the major problem. Like, because they found some bear scat and some bear tracks, the investigators concluded he was attacked by a bear and eaten. Now think about that conclusion for a second, and think about what I said in my earlier videos about how the press uses the kind of the path of least resistance to explain what's going on and how ridiculous it is, but people will buy it because I've never been to the area. Have you? I'm not an expert in that area. I'm not an expert in bears and how they operate. You have to do some research, right? You have to look up what's happening. Most people won't do that. They'll just take it at face value. Well, the press says it was a bear. Well, but wait a minute. He's a bear expert. He's a bear tracking expert. So in all those years, 20 plus, almost 30 years or more of bear tracking, successful bear tracking, right? Are you telling me that he would allow himself to get accosted and stalked by a bear? Are you serious? Like, think about what you're saying here. And I use this analogy to some people and kind of made them laugh. I'm from Canada, so we have one of our probably the best hockey players right now, Canadian hockey players, is Sidney Crosby, right? It would be analogous to saying, you know, that the bear got him, the bird got Bart, to saying that Sidney Crosby just passed away sadly on the ice playing a hockey game, and he died by tripping while jumping over the boards and hitting his head on the ice and dying. No one would buy that. Like, they were like, no way, show me the video, I can't believe it. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's no way that would happen to like a first year NHL, let alone one of the best of the best. So that's what we're being asked to believe by the media, that one of the best was caught with his pants down, literally, because I'll get to that, by the one creature he knew the most about in his life. That makes no sense at all, especially if you're an investigator, okay? You know what to look for, and that's not it. A bear couldn't have gotten him. Now, let's say there was maybe one or two bears, and they did get him. I'm not ruling that out, that they attacked him. There would have been a huge sign of struggle. There would have been a lot of broken branches, a lot of, especially in the soil, marks in the soil of Bart struggling. He's strong, remember. He's one of the strongest guys that could do his work. And none of that was there. It's almost as if Bart wasn't there at all. That's what it seemed like. It was just, and the other thing is, if the bears got him, why didn't they go for the easy thing to also, or before getting him, which was his food at the camp, which wasn't disturbed? From the evidence of the refuse at the camp, the investigators concluded that Bart was at the camp for only a day, maybe two at the most, from the wrappers and the amount of food that was missing from his stash. And I ask you to really look at this case and notice how ridiculous it is to conclude that the bear got Bart Schleyer. It's absolutely asinine to think that, and yet that's the conclusion, and case solved. Nothing solved, okay? This is one of the big, if you understand what I'm coming from on this case, you understand why the missing 411 phenomena is a thing. There's something here that is taking people that are experts, okay, that shouldn't go missing, yet they are. So to this day, there hasn't been any new leads, any new evidence in the case that we know of anyway, publicly, that was publicly disclosed. The only thing, the last thing I'll say is the person responsible for the search said that in all his years of searching missing people and witnessing weird events in that area, this is by far the most unusual event. And when he heard about it, and he heard who it was Bart Schleyer, he couldn't believe it. He could not believe that he was missing, that there was no body found, and that the conclusion was that the bear got him. He could not believe all those things, and yet that's what the press concluded, the investigators, and the case solved, right? We all know it's not solved. So please give your theories, your explanations, and especially if you're an expert, if you're someone of Bart's, moxie, where like of his quality in that field. If you feel like you could add to the discussion of why this is a silly idea to think that he was taken by a bear, please do. Please use your expertise, comment down below, and tell me and tell us why this is such a asinine explanation, okay? Because this is one of the cases that still bothers me. If someone that good can get snagged, then imagine what can happen to an average person in a while. Please comment below, and I'll see you in my next video.